Ladies and gentlemen, Linear Fusion Rifle saw a buff here in Season of the Splicer. They got a 15% precision damage increase and a 20% increase to their ammo reserves. And when this buff was announced last season, a lot of people picked up on the fact that Bungie did not specify that exotics would be tuned separately, as they had in the past. And I think the first weapon that popped into a lot of people's minds was Sleeper Simulant. But my brain does not work like most people's. The first weapon that I thought of was the Queenbreaker, a gun that I really enjoyed using ever since Destiny 1, but also a weapon that I could never find a practical use for in Destiny 2. Except of course for picking off enemy guardians in the Forsaken days back when Queenbreaker had like quadruple the amount of intended aim assist, but I digress. Is this blanket buff to the weapon class enough to bring Queenbreaker back into the conversation of heavy exotics to consider equipping? Well, hopefully I can provide an answer to that question in this review. But if at any point you find this video useful, helpful, or enjoyable, feel free to leave it a like and consider subscribing to the Ironworker Gaming channel if you're not already. But as always, only do so if you feel that the content is worth supporting. Let's get into it though and have a look at Queenbreaker's stats and perks. The Queenbreaker is an exotic arc linear fusion rifle holding 5 rounds in the magazine with a charge time that will vary depending on your scope selection. The shorter zoom combat sight will see a charge time of 300, with the higher zoom marksman sight seeing a charge time of 633. Your scope selection will also alter some of the stats as well. So we'll pull in some solid numbers from Destiny Tracker and have a look. The very high stability of 91 and the solid reload stat of 64 will remain consistent between the two scopes. Also, the aim assist will remain unchanged. With the combat sight equipped, you will get a little less zoom magnification, which is not noted in the stat line here, as well as a handling boost over the marksman sight. With the marksman sight equipped, this weapon's impact is pushed up, resulting in higher damaging shots, while also increasing the range stat, making shots fired with this scope a bit more accurate. Queenbreaker's intrinsic trait is Wire Rifle. Fires a long-range precision arc bolt that blinds enemies on hit, and at one point this blinding effect was only applied if you had the marksman sight equipped. At some point this was either changed or fixed, because in my testing I was seeing that blinding effect regardless of the scope selection. And while there is no true exotic perk on Queenbreaker, we do have the option of either hipfire grip or quick draw. Also, at the time of recording this video, there is no exotic catalyst available for Queenbreaker. But if this is a weapon that you still need to get your hands on, it is a random world drop, or could be purchased from Xur if he happens to be selling it on a given week. But with that, let's move into the PvE section and start putting this weapon to the test. Alright, as always, we'll start out with some functionality aspects first. You can see that this weapon has 2 sight glasses on the back end of the scope. The marksman sight will make use of the center scope, has a precise crosshair, a little more zoom, a little longer charge time, and it hits a bit harder. A blinding effect is applied to the target that seems to stun them for roughly 5 seconds. The combat sight scope is offset slightly to the left. This has a tri-dot reticle, has a bit less zoom, and a faster charge time at the cost of some damage. And we can see that blinding effect is being caused here as well. For the reload speeds, the time to swap magazines does not change depending on your scope selection. But when dealing with weapons that need to be charged up, I like to measure from the moment that I press the reload button till the next shot is discharged. So the varying charge times are going to be factored in. Starting out with the marksman sight equipped, the full reload time comes in at just about 2.5 seconds. And if the combat sight is equipped, that reload time is going to be just about 2.15 seconds. If we throw on a single linear fusion rifle loader mod, the marksman sight's reload time will be reduced to just over 2 seconds, and with the combat sight equipped, we're looking at about 1.74 seconds. For the ammo reserves, we're going to be able to carry 21 rounds in total at base, and with a single linear fusion rifle reserves mod equipped, we'll be able to carry 22. On to the damage output, and allow me to remind you, yet again, that PvE damage numbers are variable, and will scale differently depending on the activity or enemy tier. And I'm sure 99.9% of you understand this, but it never fails. I always get at least one comment along the lines of,
I went and I shot a shadow thrall with that gun, and it did way more damage than what you're showing.
If that's you, rewind the video 20 seconds, put your listening ears on, and let it sink in. This is why I always test in the conflux loss sector on Nessus, to keep those damage numbers consistent from video to video. So if you want to run your numbers against mine, this is where I'm at. Anyway, damage time, and just a heads up, when I figured the DPS on this weapon, I did roll in the initial charge time. We'll be testing out the marksman sight first. Versus Carl, we're hitting for 47,054 points of damage on a crit, and 13,674 points of damage to the body. So if we land all crits in a 5-round magazine, which would be a lot easier if Carl didn't shield his face from the blinding effect, we would see 235,270 points of damage. Time to empty the magazine comes in at 5.34 seconds, so single mag DPS with the marksman sight comes in at 44,058 points of damage. With the combat sight equipped, a crit is registering for 33,982 points of damage, and body shots are hitting for 9,876. Maximum potential damage in a single magazine is 169,910. Time to empty the magazine here comes in at 3.6 seconds, due to the reduction in the charge time. Single mag damage per second with the combat sight is 47,197. So less total damage obviously, but a little bit higher burst damage. For a basis of comparison, let's have a look at Sleeper Simulant. And yes, I finally took the time to unlock the catalyst, so we are getting the quicker charge time. On a crit, we're gonna see 63,586 points of damage. But we're only dealing with a 3-round magazine, so the potential damage in a single mag comes in at 190,758. This damage is being delivered in just about 2.96 seconds, so single mag damage per second comes in at 64,445. So we are seeing better damage output out of Sleeper. But if you want to consider total damage in reserves, when using Queenbreaker you can carry 21 total rounds at base. That means you have 988,134 points of total damage in reserves as long as you have the marksman sight equipped. Sleeper, with its catalyst unlocked, can only carry 13 total rounds at base. That puts its total damage in reserves at 826,618. So if this facet is something that you value, Queenbreaker does come out on top. Currently, Sleeper Simulant, for one reason or another, did not see the full 15% damage buff as it was intended to. In my testing, it's only hitting for about 2,000 additional points of damage from last season. So when this issue gets addressed, Sleeper's damage is going to be moving upward. As far as Queenbreaker's performance goes, I don't really have a whole lot to say about it. If this is a weapon that you enjoy using, it can get the job done. The damage output is good, and does look a lot better after the damage increase that we saw this season. It's a dependable, long-range, single-target damage dealer with the ability to clear out stun champions in 3 to 4 shots. And the blinding effect from the bolts, well, it doesn't phase champions or boss tier targets. Mini-bosses or Lost Sector bosses are affected. So you can basically stun lock them with Queenbreaker. This is also a very stable weapon, so staying on target shouldn't be much of an issue. And Queenbreaker does come with hipfire grip as well, which was recently buffed again. This might not be the most useful perk on a long-range precision-based weapon, but if you do need to get a quick shot off from the hip, it's there. Quick Draw though is the perk that I opted to run most of the time. When dealing with champions, once you stun them with an off weapon, you can pull out Queenbreaker very quickly and get to work. But we do have issues. First, this is a precision-based weapon. You gotta hit your crits to make the most out of it. If you notice, Sleeper Simulant has very high body shot damage as well as its high crit damage. So as far as exotic linear fusion rifles go, Sleeper is the much more forgiving option. But also, a nicely rolled legendary linear fusion rifle can outdamage Queenbreaker. Threaded Needle with Vorpal Weapon will do over 50,000 points of damage per shot versus boss tier targets. Queenbreaker just won't hit those numbers, not within the gun itself at least. Then the combat sight, to me, doesn't feel great. At one point, this was the only sight that I would use on this weapon, and it just doesn't feel as accurate or as consistent as I remember it being, even after the weapon's aim assist was brought down to the appropriate value. The marksman sight just feels much better in the time that I spent with Queenbreaker recently. And lastly, and by no fault of Queenbreaker, here in Season of the Splicer, linear fusion rifles are not featured in the seasonal artifact. I would have bet money that they would have been, after Bungie announced that they were getting buffed. But Season of the Splicer's artifact prioritizes things that go boom. Rocket launchers, grenade launchers, weapons with explosive perks, they're all seeing more utility than linear fusion rifles currently. So even with the 15% precision damage increase, and the 20% increase to ammo reserves, they still aren't getting as much play as I thought they would have been. But let's move into the PvP section, and I don't have much to discuss on that side of the game, but we'll still run the damage numbers, talk about the performance, and get things wrapped up. Into PvP and starting things out with our damage numbers. First off, the combat sight. A crit is dealing 448 points of damage, an obvious one-hit kill. Body shots are dealing 131 points of damage, so we will need 2 shots to get the job done, taking about 0.66 seconds. And here again, that initial charge time is being factored in. With a 20% damage buff, we are not going to be able to secure a one-hit kill to the body, dealing only 157 points of damage. A single crit will down a Guardian in their roaming super though. Onto the marksman sight. A crit is registering 620 points of damage. Here again, a one-hit kill. Body shots are hitting for 181 points of damage. Still needing 2 shots to down our target at base, taking about 1.3 seconds with this sight. But if we do have a 20% damage buff rolling, we can one-shot to the body, dealing 217 points of damage. And versus a Guardian in their roaming super with the marksman sight, here again, 1 crit will deal lethal damage. The blinding effect on shots landed will be applied to Guardians in the Crucible as well. You can see things here from Mrs. Ironworker's perspective when she gets tagged with a shot from Queenbreaker, and the effect appears to be consistent between the 2 scopes. As far as Queenbreaker's performance in PvP, it's a linear fusion rifle. If you like using linear fusion rifles in the Crucible, this is a good one. It's stable, it's responsive, and it feels fairly forgiving when your shots are slightly off target. You're going to pick up 5 rounds when pulling heavy ammo off the wall, and the ability to one-shot body with a 20% damage buff in the marksman sight equipped is a definite plus. And in the right situation, the blinding effect on a non-lethal hit could come in handy since it will briefly disorient your target, leaving the window open for you to secure the kill. Unless you really like the feel of Queenbreaker though, at the end of the day, it's a linear fusion rifle. It's really not providing much more utility than a standard legendary linear fusion rifle would. And it's burning your exotic slot. But if you want to use it, use it. I've always enjoyed using this weapon, but I know that deep down, it's just not the most efficient use of my exotic slot in the Crucible. For the verdict, I really wanted to be able to say, ladies and gentlemen, Queenbreaker is now amazing. And while the numbers do look a lot better with the blanket buff that Linear Fusion Rifle saw this season, I just can't say that this weapon is great, no matter how badly I want to. In PvP, I just don't think there's enough additional utility here to really warrant using your exotic slot on this weapon. And I suppose the same thing goes for PvE as well. The blinding shots are cool and can be effective in the right scenario. But just knowing that a nicely rolled legendary Linear Fusion Rifle can outperform Queenbreaker really decreases its value in my eyes. It's a weapon that I've always enjoyed using, and it's a weapon that can get the job done now. But it's a tough sell with it taking up both your heavy and your exotic slot. But if you did enjoy this video, feel free to leave it a like, and consider subscribing to the Ironworker Gaming channel to catch more Destiny 2 content presented by yours truly. If you'd like to contact me, you can look for Ironworker814 on Twitter, join our channel Discord, link will be in the description, or comment down below and I will do my best to get back to you. And with all that being said, I'd like to thank you for taking the time out of your day to check out this weapon review. You guys are awesome, and I will catch you on the next one.